As someone that loves video games, Silent Hill is one of those games that you just hear about and know that it's the Citizen Kane of video games. I didn't like Citizen Kane, but I've recently been given the chance to waste my nights away playing all 4 of the original Silent Hill games back to back, and then equally getting a chance to get a maximum of 4 hours of sleep a night because of it. And yes, after the rock consumes and the fog enters and the schizoparanoia infests me like a brain eating my frontal lobe away, I felt I had undergone an experience that no other video game series had presented me. I get it. Now, I am no stranger to Silent Hill. The amount of video essays and analysis younger me found myself watching when I believed this series to still be underground, like an idiot. But playing these games is such a different experience than anything someone can describe, and a reason why these games are impossible to replicate, or any games made after this first quadrilogy has not come close to the neuron-melting renaissance of horror these games sprung upon the world. So I wanted to detail my journey playing these games. Not like anyone's gonna see it and I'll kill myself if this video doesn't get at least 100 views. What makes them so special and whether they're still relevant today and worth playing. Or just nostalgia from old gamers who had real video games, not this modern trash. So whether it's your first time entering the fog, or maybe you're a returning guest to the town, allow me to be your tour guide and welcome you to...
In my restless dreams, I see that town, Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday. But you never did.
Silent Hill, in my mind, is an amazing quadrilogy made by Team Silent of Konami Studios, who are brilliant making one of the most infamous and intricate horror series out of nothing at all. Everyone who likes Silent Hill knows the story, but I'm gonna tell it again because it's just so damn good. Given the task of making a Hollywood blockbuster action game to replicate Resident Evil, Team Silent was like, I don't wanna. And because they were such an underlooked team, they instead used the money just to make their own game. Which is like so ballsy, taking a company's money and just doing what you think is cool. Who does that? Looking at old interviews, it's so fascinating as they describe their process of making games through a lens of themes and concepts instead of the practical use of, oh, I don't know, narrative, gameplay, and characters. Like in the interviews, they'll literally just be like,
yeah, we wanted to use the idea of demented hellscape and rebirthing, and that was the foundation we used to build the game.
After the hit of the first game, the team, each title onward, would reform, losing some of the prior team, and eventually after the 4th entry, none of the original team remained. Each game up to this point, striving to try to do something new and be different from the last, which they accomplished very well. If you look online or on Reddit, a lot of people like to romanticize Team Silent in these 4 games as a culmination of their great storytelling, characters, world building, and deeper understanding of the games that you get after multiple playthroughs. I often see people discuss the intricacy of these games and how it's hard to understand their true meaning. I think this is false. Almost every game lays out their story and deeper meanings fairly well to an audience and the player. These stories and characters aren't hard to understand or on a deeper level of thinking or unable to be replicated, but for some reason, Silent Hill and the Meat Riders stand the test of time. I'm one of those Meat Riders, by the way. This, in my opinion, beyond everything else, is to do with Silent Hill itself. Not like the game, but the town in the game. What the fuck is he talking about? The game takes place in Silent Hill. Oh, you got that? Oh, okay, cool. This town is the overarching, unrealized shadow that unknowingly looms over the series, and is probably the biggest factor in what makes these games and characters so prolific. You look confused. Did I? Oh wait, you have no fucking clue what I mean. Okay, how about this? We're gonna look at each game in this quadrilogy in the order I played them, and I'll give a synopsis of the game, its story, and characters, then explain the importance of the underlying theme, and then how Silent Hill, the town, makes these games unreplicable.
You come here and enjoy spilling their blood. and listening to them cry out. You feel excited when you step on them and snuff out their lives.
Are you talking about the monsters?
Monsters? They look like monsters to you?
Oh no.
Don't worry. It's just a joke.
Oh, remember when I said the order I played the games in? I actually played them in reverse, baby. That's right, backwards. That's where we're gonna cover them. Point all you want, you'll see why. So without further ado, let's start with Silent Hill 4: The Room takes place in, well, you guessed it, a room. Well, oh, kinda. We play our most boring, least intricate character, Henry Townsend, who is locked in his apartment?
He has no way of leaving or outside contact.
Luckily, Henry has a hole in his bathroom wall, casually, that he can climb through and get to each, mini world? These schizophrenic worlds that he seems to go through and stuff, they're crazy, they scare me. Honestly though, the world building here is fantastic. Each new world and level is done just beautifully. The monsters are great and it's just utterly terrifying to go through. It's done super well. He goes through each world giving us a new character to follow. We meet them, they die, we meet them, they die. Until we get to Eileen, the female lead of the story. Eileen is our next door neighbor. We don't know her too well and we don't have any personal connection to her besides the fact that we can peep on her through the hole in our fucking apartment. Just like a real one, we're so real for that.
It should have been me, not him! It's not fair!
After barely saving her, we go through each world once more, having to deal with the ghost of each dead victim from prior. We are then faced with the antagonist, Walter Sullivan, who constantly appears throughout this game as both a child and adult. Walter Sullivan is dead though, and has been for a plethora of years. What? Okay, Walter Sullivan was a serial killer, using his first 10 victims to summon a supernatural element where he is capable of trapping and killing beyond the grave, before he then commits suicide in prison. What we see in the game is the rest of his 21 victims to complete the ritual to bring his mom back to life. You got me, it's Full Metal Alchemist, you got me, I just really like the shit. Okay, here's the kicker. Hey, pay attention to this part, pay attention. His mom, who he's trying to, resurrect, he believes, and I am not joking, is the apartment you live in. Henry's apartment, like the whole apartment. He believes the building of the apartment is his mother. What a fucking idiot. Okay, who's gonna tell the guy? Henry and Eileen are supposed to be the final victims to his master plots of resurrecting his mother and killing all 21 victims. However, Henry, foiling Walter Sullivan's plot, gets in the way and saves Eileen and himself, if you get the correct ending, then kill Walter again for again? Like he was already dead? Yippee! There are a lot of gameplay elements like the apartment itself and the intricacy of Henry interacting with it that makes it such an interesting gameplay element. Honestly, having this safe space turn into this haunting horror ground where constantly things are changing and shifting around and you just get these creepy interactions is so well done. And it's a great element, and the fact that you're not able to leave it and interact at all outside really encapsulates that feeling of being trapped. But equally, as great as the worlds are, they're very uninspired and don't really have much else to do and aren't very large. And eventually, the point where you're escorting Eileen around is a bitch and a half to fucking do. I'm not so here to much talk about the gameplay or characters for this title specifically, but instead it's part in Silent Hill. And the biggest factor of this game is that it doesn't, actually take place in Silent Hill, but is still so important to the other games. Characters in this game like Joseph Schreiber, Frank Sunderland, and our villain, Walter Sullivan, are no new characters to Silent Hill, but this is the first game they appear in. A lot of the other games have multiple articles, notes, and mention of these characters. Joseph Schreiber, a journalist trying to do a retrospective on Silent Hill. Oh shit, that's me guys. He then went insane and was killed. Frank Sunderland, the father of James Sunderland. Sorry, that just happens when you mention him. Just ignore it for now. Protagonist of the second game, his father killed a pair of siblings with his car, as we learn in the second game. Walter Sullivan is mentioned multiple times in notes in newspapers as we hear about his killings and his relation to the Wish House, an orphanage neglecting children and teaching them Satanism and rituals. Which is crazy to me that he's mentioned 2 games prior to the game that actually features and stars him. That foreshadowing is crazy and just shows the dedication that Team Silent really puts in their games and thought. Silent Hill 4 is decoded to the audience differently due to most of the characters having no involvement in Silent Hill besides these 3 mentioned. Yet the plague of the town follows everyone and impacts everyone it touches, and that's what this game is supposed to show us. Even though Henry Townsend is a terrible protagonist, Eileen is a terrible relation, and the story itself isn't the best, the fact that these characters still have this connection to this town, even though they have no prior knowledge of it, is so crazy and so well done by the team in expanding this horrifying story. The effects of this place will still linger after years of the main trilogy. Speaking of the main trilogy, let's bring us to Silent Hill 3 is a direct sequel to Silent Hill 1. Ah shit! Look, okay, I know what happens in the first game. I saw the movie. Actually, it's better this way. Yeah, that's right. Who needs to know the context that follows the second? Silent Hill 3 follows Heather Mason as she's tracked down by a PI. This guy, who was hired by Claudia, this girl, who's the villain of our story. Claudia wants Heather to birth God. Heather wants nothing to do with Claudia and her entourage of wackos until they kill Heather's father, Harry Mason, protagonist of the first game, not like you would know because we have yet to cover the first game because I'm a fucking idiot. She wants to get revenge, so she teams up with the PI and they return to Silent Hill. This is the first time we get to see Silent Hill, as we are enveloped in a foggy abyss of this abandoned town. We get to explore the hospital, the amusement park, and the church, each one more terrifying than the last. In my mind, this is the pinnacle of Silent Hill. The representation through themes of hell and horrifying hellscapes with creatures that just inhabit this place are terrifying. Heather battles her inner turmoil throughout this as she is just conflicted when she learns that Heather isn't actually Heather herself, but a new person made up of 2 girls from the first game, Rebirth. And I know it sounds confusing, but bear with me. Heather being reborn from the death of an old witch and the daughter of Henry Mason, and when Heather has to come and face the truth of this situation, and then furthermore accept it as a part of herself, as not only just herself, but 2 entirely different people combined, and figuring out who she is, it makes for a perfect protagonist story. The town takes physical representation of her psyche and her emotions to attack her during this time. We finally come face to face with Claudia and swallow a magic gem that kills bad vibes, making Heather throw up God. That's him? That's God right there? That's a little guy. Then Claudia, who's a little hungry, eats God, and becomes a giant monster who is preparing to deliver God. Ew. But is then killed by Heather. Fuck yeah. Heather then returns and changes her name to Cheryl Mason, the original daughter of Harry, signifying that she is her father's daughter, no matter what. Silent Hill 3 is just phenomenal. I can never decide if it's my favorite or not, as it always competes with the second one, both being great for very different reasons. Heather is a great character, and it's fun following a teenager through this experience instead of a grown adult. Plus the fact that Heather is a girl changes our approach and feel to this game's world and themes, being the only girl protagonist so far. Each enemy towering over us, the game has terrifying moments and preys on your psyche and mind throughout the game. I think the world is definitely the best out of all the games, showing the agony and terrifying hellscape that we see reflected on not only Heather, but this town. And that was the goal of Team Silent itself, to really manifest this physical representation of hell and suffering and gritty and gross and bloody, and it is done perfectly, and it is visually such eye candy to watch. The town itself, as we see, and we'll get to see more, likes to manifest into fears, desires, and it tests its victims. The town is maddening and affects people like a plague, which explains their irrational and psychotic behavior. With no place to ground themselves, not being able to trust your surroundings, you only have yourself and your mind to rely on. And even that can make or break a person. The foggy abandoned town lays in silence. The way the sound design toys with the silence is eerie and makes you feel unnerved. You know something is wrong, even if it doesn't look like it. I don't remember if someone else made this analogy, but the town Silent Hill is like a Venus flytrap, as it calls out to its victims and gets you drunk off its Stockholmish nature, showing you your inner mind and psyche. But by the time you realize that this is dangerous, you've already been swallowed whole. Every set piece feels like a liminal space where it should be filled with people and has remnants of a thriving and filled town. Yet it's empty, with no explanation of why. Each person or left behind memorabilia oozing with melancholic feel, as if you already know this town has never ended in a happy story. And there's no way to better signify this more than what we get to see in
Heads up, I'm getting a little sick, guys. I'm getting a little sicky here. It's not good.
In terms of the Silent Hill games, this is the Mac Daddy, the big cheese of this quadrilogy. If I had a nickel for every video essay trying to deep dive and analyze this game, I'd have so many pretentious ass nickels. But it's all within good reason. This game speaks volumes and is unlike anything that tries to compare. The story and faith of Kafka's Crime and Punishment, the characters all are vaulted pieces of despair that will definitely leave a mark on you after this game. It's the game where Pyramid comes from. Daddy Pyramid Head! How can you not like it? This game is probably forever imbued in internet and video game history. And if you've not experienced this game or don't wish to be spoiled by it, this is your only warning. In my restless dreams, I see that town. We open with a letter written to James Sunderland from his wife Mary telling him to come and meet her in their special place. But the strange thing is, Mary has been dead for 3 years. More than any game we've covered up until this point, we are in Silent Hill. The same Silent Hill we see in 3. It is broken. It is abandoned. It is dirty. It is despair. This game is James in this town,
as he explores it and its broken places that inhabit it as the town drags him and the other participants deeper into its bottomless pit. As James explores this town, we find ourselves meeting a few others already caught in the web. The lustful Maria, she looks like his girlfriend.
Do I look like your girlfriend?
No.
The gluttonous Eddie, the mentally distraught and suicidal Angela, and the young, lost Laura. These inhabitants, as we meet them, come off very surface level, but they wouldn't be here if they weren't. Each pertaining to their own trial the town puts them through, of which none of them will survive. Well, kind of. Here's the thing, all Silent Hill games have actual multiple endings, which sometimes is more prominent in some games than others. Silent Hill 2 probably has the most notorious endings and is distinct between each one, while some endings have characters that might live in one or die in the other. Instead, let's look at the one where they all die and we assume they all die because fuck it, why not? Just to make it easier to look at all the characters and their horrid, ghastly outcomes.
いつかそのようなものにこのディオが出会えるだろうか。必要なものは極罪を犯した36名以上の魂である。罪人の魂には強いパワーがあるからである。必要なものは
To summarize each one, Eddie, slowly distraught, haunted by those who make fun and berate him, haunted by his own cowardness as he killed a dog and shot a teacher. Then, as he goes down the rabbit hole, growing hatred for others more, wants revenge and will kill anyone that is opposing him, till he picks the wrong fight and is himself killed.
Killing a person ain't no big deal. Just put the gun to their head. Pow!
Angela, sexually abused by her father and loathes herself, haunted as she tries to find her mother, who has already passed. Trying to find salvation, haunted as thoughts of suicide plague her. Then, as she goes down the rabbit hole, becomes hopeless and delusional, and she goes off into her own demise.
It's always the same. You're only after one thing.
No, that's not true at all.
You don't have to lie. Go ahead and say it. Or you could just force me. Beat me up like he always did. You only care about yourself anyway. You disgusting pig. Give me back that knife.
No. I won't.
Saving it for yourself?
Me? No. I'd never kill myself. It's hot as hell in here.
You see it too. For me, it's always like this.
Maria, who's trying to find someone to use, someone to beckon her want and wish, haunted by her lustful desires and past, haunted by her luring nature, to reel into James's side, and as she goes deeper down the rabbit hole, finding she's a nobody by herself. She has no strength or liberty, and is slaughtered by James's desires.
James!
Mary? Oh, Maria. It's you. I thought you were... Sorry. Anyway, I'm glad you're alive.
Anyway! What do you mean, anyway?
Laura, a forgotten orphan who understands not her own horrid scenario. Haunted by her abandonment of everyone she comes across, haunted by Mary, the only one who cared for her, who is now dead. As she goes deeper down the rabbit hole, to only find that she is in a town surrounded by those who are broken and who will abandon her once more. And finally James, who came to Silent Hill to meet his supposed dead wife, who meets all of our assailants, who is haunted as each one he must slowly watch succumb to their madness, suffer, and is burdened to watch each of their tragic demise right in front of him. Haunted by his own manifestations of monsters and repressed guilt and pain he harbors, haunted by a journey through a small town once he called home, now only to be filled with ghosts and pain. As he goes further down the rabbit hole, his world deteriorates, and he must finally come to the realization that his wife is dead. She's been dead, and it was James who killed her, suffocated her. He was a monster himself.
Mary?
What do you want, James?
I brought you some flowers.
Flowers? I don't want any damn flowers. Just go home already.
Mary, what are you saying?
Look, I'm disgusting. I don't deserve flowers. Between the disease and the drugs, I look like a monster. Well, what are you looking at? Get the hell out of here! Leave me alone already! No use to anyone. Be dead soon anyway. It'd be easier if they'd just kill me. Are you still here? I told you to don't come back. James! Wait, don't go. Don't leave me alone. I didn't mean what I said. Please, James. Tell me I'll be okay. Tell me I'm not going to die. Help me.
This game solidified the fact that we definitely experienced the most of this haunted town in this title. I hate this town. And I mean that in the best way possible. In most horror games, the setting to try to scare you is typically a dark place that could be cramped with no opportunity of escaping. But Silent Hill is an open town with large areas, streets, and not dark and suspenseful. But knowing that is what makes this town terrifying to play through. You are alone. It is an empty place in silence, waiting to feed off your sanity. As you see the leftovers of life snuffed out of this town and the so many locations and surroundings, let's take a look at the different locales. Tour number 1, the hotel. This is a lovely resort filled with water as you slowly drown away. It's in the middle of a foggy lake and houses all your secrets. Number 2, the gift shop. Its basement, which is a maze of hellscapes that make you lose your mind. Number 3, as we get introduced to the hospital filled with woo. Number 4, the foggy abandoned suburb. And number 5, the prison with its caged creatures and escaped inmates. With every new location or corner turn, you just know that the place you are in is unsettling. It's wrong. It fills you with anxiety as you hear creatures roam the street. You are filled with constant dread, never knowing what is waiting. Every aspect feels so natural, but so out of place, in a beautiful way. The team went above and beyond with the town, and it definitely shows in their work as they've built such an iconic and horror-inspiring setting that affected the horror industry forever. This revolution is what makes Silent Hill, and still makes it so popular. Even though the technology now makes games look like this, it still somehow is less preferred to this polygamy-ass looking game. Do you know how hard it is to get footage that's high quality for this? Most of these videos from the game are from 16 years ago. But in that light, how is it that these games retain such prominence over the years? Well, to see that, we have to look at where it all started with.
The days are just like moments turn to hours. Mother used to say, if you want, you'll find a way. But mother never danced through fire showers. Walk in the rain, in the rain, in the rain. I walk in the rain, in the rain. Is it right or is it wrong?
In 1999, Silent Hill 1 was released to the PS1 and created a horror experience that shook the whole industry. While of course horror games existed at the time, nothing at this point was so visceral, so depraved, and utterly terrifying. Like when the first Exorcist came out, it was something that nobody could comprehend before. Well, looking back on it now, all you can see is probably a bunch of polygons and old mocap. A fully voice-acted, beautifully rendered town still somewhat holds up today. Even the enemies still terrify to a sense. It's easy to see why this is appreciated, like watching an old black and white film. But after playing it for myself, I realized that beyond the appearance, this game is pieced together beautifully with a great story and fantastic gameplay. Our story follows Harry Mason as he gets into an accident while driving through Silent Hill. His daughter, nowhere to be found, Harry looks for Cheryl, his daughter, around the town. The game gets right into it. Not even 3 minutes pass before you find yourself faced with a bloody, dark alley, accompanied by the eerie music that raises the hair on the back of your neck before the sirens blare and your world transforms to a terrifying hellscape. Attacking and killing you, you then wake up in care of a police officer. This game is only about 7 hours, but it takes that time and allows every bit to be flushed out beautifully. Like I said, comparing this to a black and white film, this film is Casablanca. And whether it's because of the return to the retro horror style, because this game was built extremely well, it's actually awful just hearing your footsteps and only them while traversing around this abandoned town. Harry goes from location to location trying to find his daughter and figure out what happened to her as the mystery of this town slowly reveals itself. Years prior, there was a girl named Alessa Gillespie who was tortured by the town and the cult within it, as they wanted to use her to birth a deity or god that they could control, wanting to use Alessa because she had supernatural powers. If you know anything, don't mess with people that have powers, dog. Like, they will fuck you up. You will get fucked up. Before the ritual, though, Alessa split her soul in two, leaving her body in a coma in Silent Hill and the other becoming a baby that Harry Mason and his wife would find. 7 years later, the return to Silent Hill awakened this memory in Cheryl, Harry's daughter, and she goes off to return and come whole with Alessa so they can kill everyone in the town. This is surprisingly the thing we want to happen. But it obviously seems so wrong, which is why Harry is tricked and coerced into going against it until it's too late and the deity starts entering our world. Harry kills the fucker, and Alessa and Cheryl reform into a baby and start over again. Harry would name the child Heather, and that's the protagonist of Silent Hill 3. Since I already covered 3, a lot of the impact that game has built off of this first game has probably felt lost. The story of this first game is great because it's so simple yet executed beautifully. Harry, after losing his only wife, only has this child that isn't even his, but he loves so much that he's going through physical and literal hell to get her back. He dives into the deep end of this insane psychotic town and their tortured residents and souls that he is willing to fight a literal god to get his daughter back. And it's a slap in the face when he gets this baby in the end that isn't his daughter, but a new person that he has no clue what it's capable of. When we get into 3, it's tragic to see Harry be killed. And later we see Harry's notes and internal dialogue, confused and upset after this. And eventually he realizes that this child is his, and that he wouldn't let anything harm her. It's why when Heather changes her name to Cheryl, she understands this revelation, and she gets how much her father cared more than anything else, why he went through so much and even still after all this still cared for her and raised her as his own with no qualms whatsoever. That's why I wanted to talk about this game last, because it shows more than any other game the deeper elements that they all have. While of course, the horror and imagery always first comes to mind, what actually makes these games stick around is the human emotion that is so viscerally felt. It's why Harry would stop at nothing to get back his only daughter. Why James killed his sick wife so he didn't have to watch her suffer. Why Cheryl decided that she's her own person and nothing of her past defines her. Why Henry risks his life to save a girl next door he doesn't even know. It's the emotions of these games, more than what's scaring you, that makes the perfect combination of these titles, and why we won't ever let them be forgotten. So where does that bring us now? Everything since this point has been met with mixed or poor reviews. And why is that? Is it because it isn't scary or has a third-person camera angle? I don't think it's any of that, or any of that really matters. I think Silent Hill, and whatever team that is tasked with the monolithian goal of making a game in their series, is doomed to fail. Because they don't understand what Silent Hill is, or what these original games try to accomplish. If you're always working to replicate a masterpiece, then the only thing you can come close to is an imitation. These games were made because Team Silent didn't want to make what they were told to. Instead, always striving in making something new, expanding each title and trying something that hasn't been done before. They wanted to make something that people would remember and understand. Companies nowadays looking at Silent Hill like a formula, where they feel adding terrifying scares and a plot twist at the end slaps together and makes another Silent Hill, instead of making a game that comes from ideas and themes and feelings. Ironic. The same thing I made fun of them for was the thing that perpetuated them to greatness. Team Silent was like no other because they harbored the emotions for pursuing something different, making something that by definition was outside the box, because they hated the box. And that's what it means to make art. It's why Van Gogh cut off his ear and why Socrates died in prison for his philosophy. These games are art in every meaning. Like we're sitting in a gallery observing it. That's why so many people talk about it. That's why so many people admire it. That's what makes it similar to the sculptures we see in museums, because they embody these emotions and feelings in their games, these experiences, yet we can't replicate that. It's not a formula or numbers or something that can easily be sold to the masses. In that vein, making another game feels like asking Picasso to paint another piece. So instead, maybe take what was already made and let the public admire it. Because striving to make something new and recapture lightning in a bottle seems to almost never work. It might be impossible to have another Silent Hill game even come out that could be anywhere close to what these first 4 games had. Let people play these games, because let me tell you, they're bitches and a half to play, and I feel like people would just love being able to experience them again, because anyone can make a stop through Silent Hill.
Well, this letter has gone on too long, so I'll say goodbye. I told the nurse to give this to you after I'm gone. That means that as you read this, I'm already dead. I can't tell you to remember me, but I can't bear for you to forget me. these last few years since I became ill. I am so sorry for what I did to you, did to us. You've given me so much, and I haven't been able to return a single thing. That's why I want you to live for yourself now. Do what's best for you, James. James, you made me happy.